All right.
Thanks, everyone. Welcome for joining. Thank you for joining me today to understand why creativity matters, and we'll be able to talk about that. As background, this is part of a white paper that I wrote earlier this year. You can find that on the sponsors page. You can download the white paper on why creativity matters. That's why I'm not going to go into so much detail here around that. But they're really about here is to really, my intention here is to amplify and raise awareness about the importance of creativity in education. And I think if you are participating in Relearn, you already know that creativity is important. But let's go on it. I'd like to do is go on it a little bit deeper from the perspective of Adobe and maybe have an opportunity to talk about creativity. Another objective would be maybe you're going to learn something about Adobe and what we do in education and creativity that you may not be aware of. For those of you listening, I can guarantee you we are more than just a PDF company and more than just for the creative professionals. So hopefully you'll be able to get some insights around that. And we'll have a nice discussion once I'm through with the presentation. So with that, let's get started. As background, I'm the head of primary and secondary schools for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. I'm actually, Barcelona is my home, is where I've been living, but I cover all of pretty much Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Just some background about myself. I come from the education field. I don't come from the corporate background. I've only been at Adobe just over a year and a half, but I am passionate about education because that's where I've spent my last 22 years working for a variety of educational institutions in Europe and the United States and Europe, always with a big focus on students and really about students and educators. The other thing is I'm originally from the United States, but I've been living in Europe the last 17 years with an Italian wife, a German-born son, and a Spanish-born daughter. And then my job at Adobe, in a nutshell, is really to partner and engage with schools, educators, policymakers, so that they can help students develop and express their own creative skills and be prepared how they're going to navigate their future going forward. So that's a little bit of background about myself, which I just give you some relevance. And as we go over to the next slide, let's talk about, here's a quote from Creativity that I like very much that you can see there on the screen. I really enjoy this very much. And it's really taking an opportunity for us to reflect a little bit before we go into the next part of the presentation. In my role at Adobe, I've been fortunate to visit classrooms around Europe and engage with creative practitioners. And yes, there's creative researchers, thought leaders, and educators, many people like yourselves, and how are you implementing and using creativity within the classroom? And I think the conclusion is simple, that we all have the capacity to be creative. It's just not limited to the arts or the related creative field. It actually can be found in every discipline and subject matter, from biology to history to maths to English and language arts. It's everywhere to be found. And our students that we work with are really waiting to unleash and show that capacity. And we know that creativity is a uniquely human characteristics, and that really separates us from any other species or machine, our ability to be creative. So along this area, it's also made me understand and appreciate more deeply that creativity does matter and why it should matter in education, especially as all of you who work in education teach and prepare tomorrow's workforce and leaders for the future. And we know we need creativity now more than ever with what we're facing now and what we'll be facing in the future. And I have found that students are the most creative individuals I've seen. It doesn't matter where they're at the preschool level all the way through higher education level. It's really impressive what they can do. And if we can help them encourage and enable their creativity, it's quite limitless what they can achieve. So let's get, how important is creativity in education? Let's see what others have to say to give you some context. For the first time in several decades, there's been a global union of educational experts who agree on the importance of creativity. From the OECD, which published a report from 11 countries last year on fostering students' creativity and critical thinking. The Brookings Institution did a recent study on the importance of creativity as the most identified skilled that in government documents of 61 countries, government documents, their research shows we need more creativity in our workforce. For those of you who are maybe based in the United Kingdom, the Durham Commission report on creativity in education last year talked about the urgent need for the government to embed creativity across schools across the entire country. And for those of you that maybe live in countries where the PISA test or you participate in the PISA test for the first time ever in 2021. Creative thinking is going to be evaluated as part of next year's PISA test. And there is really a union coming together on the importance of where creativity is. And we got to look at the schools as a starting point, because that's where it's happening. That's where we can enable, teach, and empower students to be able to do that. But not just students, but I think educators. Not that educators need to be creative, but how can they teach and show creativity in different ways and be engaging in the classroom to be able to do that. And there's also just a number of other stakeholders who have an interest in promoting and having more creativity in our classrooms, from employers that are seeking skills and capabilities in the people that they hire, the interns, the apprenticeships, or their future workforce. Governments and policymakers recognize the importance that creativity has in growing their economies for the future and the need for leadership to be more creative with what they're doing. And educational leaders, from a school leader to a college principal to the head of a university, are thinking about how do we foster the knowledge and skills development for students, while also enabling teachers and introducing them with innovative ways to teach and showcase the creativity that's coming out of the classroom. So this is why, just to give an importance of framing the importance of creativity in education. And for the sake of today's conversation, creativity can be defined in many ways, but I'll just draw on the Durham Commission's definition of creativity, creative thinking, and I like it, teaching for creativity, and giving context to that. You can see there on the screen for yourself what it says. I like these definitions. Regardless of whether you're teaching literature, math, science, history, it doesn't matter. Creativity is found across the entire educational curriculum, and it can be found there. This is not just limited to the arts or the digital media fields anymore. It's broken that barrier beyond that. And I encourage you to kind of reflect on your own approach, on how you're approaching creativity with where you're at in creative thinking, and how you're fostering and nurturing that within your institutions in the classroom. Do we need creativity? We kind of touched a bit about that, but let's explore it a little bit further. You can see the quote there on the screen that I like very much. And I do believe that at the core, society, today's students we need them to be creative thinker, creative problem solvers, digital creatives that are enabled, equipped, and empowered, excited, and engaged to untap their own creativity. We need them to untap their creativity. As we all know, probably with this Relearn conference, there's really in many cases around the globe, creativity it's been squeezed out. We lose less and less of that as long as students move along their student journey from primary to secondary schools onto any type of further education. And with the emergence of machine learning and artificial intelligence, we hear so much about that coming in the future, and it's right there. But the ability to increase productivity, so machine learning and artificial intelligence may increase our productivity in ways we can't imagine. But however, we still need workers who are creative, because machine learning and artificial intelligence is not about the creativity. That's still a very human element. So organizations from the World Economic Forum to LinkedIn are constantly placing creativity amongst the most sought after human skills for tomorrow's workforce. Human skills. And we can't underestimate the importance of why creativity matters. So it's really important. And I know it's hard right now because in certain educational systems, it's rigid, accountability, assessments, curriculum that can inhibit that. This is why we've been excited to be a sponsor in this conference, because it's about rethinking, relearning where education is going to be able to do that. And I do think that we're excited about that. Just kind of moving forward here, what we have is, I think this is just a clear one, is the student. Let's think about them front and center. The need for them to express themselves, regardless of what medium or platform or channel they're using. They have a lot of creativity that they need to share. And especially in those who've been experiencing multiple forms of lockdown or distance learning, sharing how they're feeling, what the experience has been like being away from their classroom, from their classmates, from their teachers, and expressing that. I think it's important that we help them learn and acquire these digital skills and creativity skills so that they not only can express themselves, but be prepared for their workforce, for what they're going to be doing in their future. Um, and the other thing I'd like to add here is about, it could be about the teacher, the student, that creativity could be our next superpower. I like this quote from Mala Sharma, who happens to be a vice president at Adobe, but I like the way she states this, that we have to help the students unleash their creative superpowers, regardless, again, if they're going to be a scientist, a teacher, a business owner, or even a future politician, with what, and we all need for them to release that superpower that they have, and ensuring that they are, that they're going to be successful in what they're going to be doing. So moving forward, these are some of the 5 key creativity skills that I was referring, that where I was talking about World Economic Forum, LinkedIn and their research, or some of the other international organizations are talking about. These are some of the core 5 creativity skills that they're looking to foster and nurture more within students, and that needs to happen within the classroom. Also outside the classroom, but within the classroom is an exciting place where that can happen, to be able to do that. And in a recent study that was done via LinkedIn, when they looked at all the job offers that LinkedIn has across the globe, it was surprising to see that the job posting listed communications, creativity as some of the top skills, but that only 3 and 4 resumes that they had did not list either of them, did not list creativity or communication. So there was a gap there. And there's a skills gap, especially for employers looking to hire people to be able to do that. So I think it is important that we foster and nurture these creative skills on how that happens. And I think it's also important thing, how do we do that in a digital world, right? Because there is a growing concept around digital literacy, but also creative literacy, digital creativity in the classroom, and how that's happening to be able to do that. And then just one last slide here before I move on to the final section is really the reality facing many of you who are educators, who are here with us today and looking to find ways to help you and how you're achieving your objectives and the student outcomes that you want to achieve. That in a research study that we carried out 2 years ago, many of the educators are saying they don't have the necessary tools that they need to foster and nurture creative problem solving. And also the training of the knowledge, especially because now digital is not an option. It's what's happening now through distance learning, remote learning, hybrid learning. How do we prepare for that and have that ready to be able to still teach for that, even if may not be in the classroom? So I think it's important to talk about this reality that educators are facing. So, despite these realities, I'm still encouraged by individual school leaders that we work with, that we engage, and who I meet with regularly, who are not waiting for their governments to take action. They're responding and taking their own initiatives within their own classrooms. And I think for those of you who are joining the conference today, you probably represent that group of people who are not waiting and are making things happen to drive things forward. That's a little bit of context regarding, I think it's relevant, the importance of creativity and why it's so important and what's happening here. At this other point now, what I'd like to talk about, I think for many of you, you may think, well, what does Adobe have to do with creativity and education? Yes, we know you did a bit of the PDF. We know you're maybe in design schools and visual arts and media schools. But I think it's important for me to bring some awareness regarding what Adobe is doing in education, which I think you're going to find really enlightening and I think really, really useful. So for almost 30 years, Adobe has had a deep commitment to education and to empowering the next generation. We really strive to inspire and kind of prepare the next generation of lifelong learners, of lifelong creators and learners. We really believe strongly in that. And I think we're uniquely equipped to be able to do that as the creativity company. So for us, in order to be able to do that, it has been important that whatever we provide to schools and the educational community is also something that's accessible, because access is really important, especially in today's age with what we're living in this current pandemic and how it's impacted education in such a really drastic and impactful way. So access becomes really important right now. In these terms of for how can we provide access anytime and anywhere, and that it's also can be a trusted and valued partner for what you want to be doing. So let me give you a little bit highlights regarding that's a bit of our approach of how we want to ensure that educational institutions and our customers that we work with see us and value us. As you can see here, just to give you an overview, we have the best creativity apps. And I know a lot of you know the Photoshop and InDesign names. Those are some of the ones that come top of mind. But there's over 22 creativity applications that we have in our Creative Cloud suite. And these are the ones used by, professionals around the globe, everywhere. But to be able to get those in the hands of students now and educators is exciting for us to be able to do that. And we've been doing that for the last couple of years. We want to make sure that what we're providing is accessible to schools and in a way that's affordable. Some of our products are at no charge, from Adobe Spark, or how we make the entry point very much accessible, that schools can be able to afford this and provide this to their students and educators, no matter where they're at. And also that it's important things. We got to connect the creativity to the curriculum. That becomes really important as well, that we're connecting creativity to the curriculum. It has to be relevant. It has to fit in and integrate with what school and teachers are teaching. And that becomes really important as well, to be able to do that. And the last thing is that we provide professional development at no charge for our educators and our teachers, that they can be able to use that and being able to learn how to use Adobe. Even if you never used it, we'll help you. We'll give you training and access on how to develop your professional development. And the last thing is, I just wrap up here, and I just want to open up for some questions, or maybe there's questions in the comment when I look at when I go to the different view here. Is it's applicable across the curriculum, anything from presentations to creating documents and videos, photos, illustrations, whether that's using a book report, videos becomes really important in the case in our primary and secondary school level. So these are just some of the kind of more popular applications that schools and students and educators are using in the classroom to be able to do that. And then just to give you an example here is at the elementary school, at the primary school level, maybe they're using Spark Video to create a book report. Then as they transfer into lower secondary school or the middle school level, they may be using Adobe Premiere Rush, which is another video application, to describe a science project that's been created and how they use video as the medium to explain that. And that's really engaging for students, and it gives teachers an alternative way on how they can have students deliver a project. And in the high school or upper secondary school level, they may use Adobe Premiere Pro, which is an advanced video application that we have, to create a biology report that's done in Premiere Pro is what's used when you're making movies and in the cinema, and they can use that same application to be able to do that. So we want the students throughout their student journey to really be using the Creative Cloud and developing those creativity skills and knowledge and abilities that they can take with them if they're going to go on to further education, or they're going to go right into the workforce, that they really have some skills that really have some value and meaning to them, and even when they'll be looking for jobs, to be able to do that. So that's kind of in a summary what I wanted to talk about regarding what we're doing about creativity, why it matters, what the role of Adobe is, and what we're doing. And I'd encourage you to also, reach out to me if you got questions. Visit our sponsor page. I didn't want to get into examples and show you all that. I think it's better if you visit our pages, reach out to me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have as I wrap this up. And I really appreciate your time